So, welcome everybody. So, most of you know me, but I'm still going to present myself. So, my name is Annie-Laure. I'm a practitioner of Chinese medicine. And over the years, I've been doing this for a long time, but over the years, most of the people who came to me were CEOs of startups, or founders, or philanthropists, or there were people who wanted to shift themselves from inside and implement that into their projects. So I became more and more interested in how does that translate. And I've been, as I was refining my own craft around the aligning the elements and the yin and yang and all of that, I started seeing the potential that it would have into organization. And over the years, most of the people who came to me were in burnout, and or at least I'd say a third. And I started realizing how do we maintain that balance if we work in an environment that doesn't have that balance. And so I'm not here to teach you about business, because I'm not a business person, but just to give a lens and maybe inspire you to see everything you do. As soon as people come together and have a project, those principles apply. And so I've tried to weave in some experiences, so it's not too dry and just some knowledge in there. We're going to start by this is the agenda. So we're gonna have first a reflection together, like just to arrive and land, and then I'll weave in some theory about 5 elements and their correspondence in business, and then we'll have another interaction, and then we'll go into how does that apply into organizations, and then we'll have another reflection. Also, there's quite a lot of young people here, so you haven't had that kind of experience in business, but maybe you can start kind of mapping this to other things, but we'll kind of have a lot of interactions together today to integrate all of this. And if we need to have a break, we'll have a break, and then I'll guide a meditation. So to have an experience of those elements and of the tree of life, and also guide you to have some insight that might be useful for your own developments. And we'll have some reflection. So the first exercise to arrive and to kind of weave a bit of interactions together will be to pair up with another participant, someone that maybe you don't know, so you maybe kind of break out of your comfort zone, or you know less. And the first person is going to talk about the mood you're in, maybe just in 3 words. Just start, hey, I've just arrived, this is my mood. I feel excited, or I feel tired, or just 3 words. Explain the relationship you have with nature in general, or what brought you here, that curiosity. And I'll have a timer, so this is just to land. And then the other person will have to mirror that back to the other. So don't invent a story, just say back what you've heard. And then we'll swap. And then in the mirroring, you can say where I felt you the most. So maybe the person is talking, but there's a moment in what that person is saying that you feel that person is transmitting some kind of excitement or something. Where I felt you the most is when you described that, you know. So is there any question, or should we dive in? Yeah. So I'll let you spontaneously, and then you can move. You can sit over there on the cushions, or you can stay around the table. Just find your partner for this exercise.
I think this.
So,
okay.
And Ruben, are you alone?
Yes.
So I'll come with you.
Okay.
Okay, what mood am I ready?
Shall I stop the recording now? Or?
Yes, stop the recording.
The mirroring helps to create trust and safety, and because there are young people here, I want to say something you can do in your relationship, your partnership, when you come together, talk about your mood, talk about the topic and reflecting back to each other. This is important practice that can be done also in business, to be able to kind of arrive. And so these are a few things we're going to see today. So we're going to look at organization through the lenses of traditional Chinese medicine, which is a very ancient system that fosters balance between the elements in the body that have corresponding organs. Those correspondents are yin and yang. The interconnectedness from micro to macro, how there's no separation from the atomic to the cosmos in your body. We're going to talk about the balance between yin and yang in teams and leadership. So right now we all know that it's very yang in nature, and that most of the organizations do not have enough of that yin. So we're going to look what does that mean. And we're going to look at the 5 elements and what they mean in business also. So yin and yang, I think most of you have a bit of an idea of what that is. If we talk about burnout, the yin could be the wax and the yang could be the flame. And so if your flame has been raging for a long time, then your yin, the wax, is going to melt. And so most of the time when people come in burnout, it takes a long time to replenish that wax, because how long did it take for it to go down, to burn down? And so it's like a mindset that needs to change, because everything that led to that fire burning too much needs to change, because you can replenish that yin, but that flame, if it's still overburning, you're not gonna make progress. So one of the main questions I get is like, how long will it take? Well, it depends of the mindset and all the changes that go around it. So yin is nurturing, it's stable, it's inner, it's introspection, it's like a cave. In ancient spirituality, the Black Madonna was a representation of that yin. Black meaning the cave, the darkness, the void from which everything can be created, like a womb. And the Tao, which TCM is based on, is like a womb from which everything can be created, and that holds everything. And yang is active. It's what you see in nature in spring. This is the energy that makes everything grow suddenly. It drives ambition, it drives growth, it drives expansion. And like fire, the fire needs to conquer, to expand, to survive. It's all those forces. And as I said, burnout occurs when those 2 forces are not aligned. And in business, that would mean that the outer fire needs to be met with inner fire, and so on. So this is like a very simple introduction to 5-element theory. So there are 5 elements. Water. If we look at it through the lens of the child, so the birthing is very watery, and then this wood, which is like the growth that you have in your childhood, like you keep growing and growing. Then there's the fire, which is like that expansion that comes into that first time when you get to know your passion and your purpose and go into the world and develop yourself. There's earth, which should be in a way more in the center. And there's like a metal meaning more like structure, or the minerals that are in water. And so in Chinese medicine, there are cycles. The elements, they nourish each other or they control each other. So let's say the water nourishes the wood naturally, so that's easy to grasp. And the wood will nourish the fire, that's also easy to grasp. And then the ashes of the fire go back to the earth, and so they nourish. And the earth, the minerals will nourish the metal, and the metal, those minerals, the metal will nourish the water, sorry. The minerals are in the water. And there is a controlling cycles. So let's say the metal, like the scissors, are going to cut the wood. Or the water is going to control the fire. So someone might have symptoms in the wood, let's say migraines, menstrual issues. But the therapy would include the wood, but it would also be about nourishing the water, so the wood gets enough, reducing the fire, so the wood don't get, so like if the fire is like too many projects, then too many projects require a lot of wood, a lot of people, a lot of resources, a lot of planning. So that will also end up affecting the wood. So other qualities that you may have is wood is growth, creativity. It's also that dreamlike quality children have when they get lost in play, you know. That's pretty much attached to the wood element. Each element has a soul, like a spirit. And so the wood spirit is really that kind of creativity that children have. Wood will include planning and would include also growth. And fire is like your passion, you need for transformation, for action. Earth for stability, nourishment, community. Metal for structure and precision. And water for adaptability, flow. Also meaning, depth. A lot of people are seeking for that water, for that depth into what they do, and when they don't find it, it's also affecting that water element. So why does yin and yang matter in organization? So I think you've seen it. If it's too young, but if there's goals and growth, but we don't pay attention to the resources, to the well-being of the people, those two needs to kind of match. A good example, I think, in submarines. I don't remember which country, but they have implemented that culture where there is a yang leader and a yin leader, and the yin leader in the submarines is there to make sure everybody's okay. And so there are some examples that exist, but overall I think we can all agree that it's not the norm. And so this leads to, so in business, I think I'm going to go through those elements, but go a bit deeper. So wood has an inner and outer aspect. So the inner aspect of the wood would be a nurturing growth. So not just growth, but like a nurturing growth within a company, nurturing that creativity and that planning. And the outer aspects of that wood would be expansion, driving innovation, initiating projects. So the business also needs to kind of reinvent itself the same way that cells have to regenerate. It needs to kind of find new drive, new innovation, and you need that quality of dreaming, of seeing outside the box. So that would be pretty much the wood. That would be product development, long-term strategic planning, market expansion, launching new initiatives, innovation. And for the fire, the business application will be in the inner, would be company culture, overall vision, aligning mission with practices, And then the outer fire would be sales, marketing, public relations, customer engagement. And so for the earth element in business, that would be the inner earth. It's clear. It's budgeting, payroll, accounting, HR, and then the outer earth would be fundraising, resource management, logistic, and for the metal, the inner metal would be quality control, process optimization, compliance, and then the outer metal would be legal affairs, policy making, strategic implementation. And for water, the inner water would be strategic planning, risk management, adaptability training, and then the outer water would be networking, partnership, mergers and acquisitions. So this is just to give a bit of an idea what that means in business. So this is another kind of exercise. I know some of you have not had that corporate experience, but you can see it maybe in school, in the training you've been, in the organization you've been. Maybe to pair and to think about those elements, and to have, or maybe we can do it as a group here, and to think about how did those elements played out in the experiences you've had, or what inspiration does that bring, or what insight does that bring right now? So where is growth occurring in your business, that innovation, that fire, how does passion show up in my team or within me, or how am I making new contact, inspiring others? Earth, do I have enough funding? The payroll, the metal, how are the structures enhancing or hindering the flow? So if we go back to this, now you start realizing how the cycles are important, because let's say if the fire of the business is out of control and there isn't enough water to control that fire, it will draw the wood on the people, so when you start looking at this lens, you can almost have like this kind of control of all the elements of the organization that you're in or that you're part of, and sense, oh, okay, where can I balance here? Do I need the metal, so the structure, to control a bit more the innovation and the growth, because is that out of control? Or do we have enough resources to nourish all that innovation? So it becomes like a tool, or like a map to be able to navigate. Of course, the map is not the territory, but it's a map. It's a tool. It's a way to kind of be able to sense a bit better, and maybe to have conversations with colleagues about what is happening. So I don't know if any of you wants to jump here or have questions or share something about those elements and the experiences you've had. Well, the idea was to pair up here also. We could pair up again and discuss.
Yeah, I would like to share. I think it's very important. We don't see the world like business like that, and a lot of time it's really about growth, and then how do we balance when the growth, people is just one unidirectional of growth. Have you seen it with other entrepreneurs or something?
Also, I feel like there's a lot of bureaucracy now, and I think that might be earth or metal. This
could be metal.
These sort of systems that get overly complicated so that people have things to do, because there's no wood Maybe.
Okay.
Attention.
That's interesting. Thank you, Ruben. To go back to you, yes, I mean, in nature, what happens is that a tree grows quickly. There's a point it stops growing. There's a point the tree is just simply going to have deeper roots, and it's going to become wider and more stable. So when the wind comes, the tree does not fall just with just a little bit of wind. If the tree is too tall and it doesn't have the root, it's just going to fall. And so, and there's a point where that tree becomes a host to a whole ecosystem. And so that's why it's not sustainable to only focus on growth, because growth, as soon as there's a little crash or a little wind, whatever that wind may be, your whole organization is fragile.
In my opinion, what I see, I mean, older generation, the baby boomers, they didn't really ask the question of purpose. They would just do their job, like a machine, paying a high price. So for me, purpose is very important, you know. So in which element?
There would be the fire.
Would be also the fire. Yes.
It's like when you start a project, you have. I believe this is why you're doing this. The big
Yes,
why.
yes.
That's the purpose. And then there's the next steps. You know, it's like how. You know, and then it comes into matter, into form. Like if this was about pregnancy, it would be the child wish. You have a child wish. And then, but most of the pregnancy happen without a child wish, and so there's already a lack of vision already in that incarnation, and so there's a wish, and then there is like this insemination. So the two eggs come together, and so the project comes into matter. And there's the gestation part, and that's the gestation is when you kind of need the earth to come, like the funding. And most projects don't happen because this is where it stops. There's no funding. And then if there's funding, there's a birth. You know, something emerges, and then you're going to need structure. This is when you need to bring governance system and think what works for this, and how is that aligned to my vision. So sometimes a purpose-driven vision right now does not always find the right structure that matches that vision, which is what I've seen. And most of the projects that I've coached or that I've been part of, it's there. Usually they don't get the funding, but if they do, it's there that they struggle the most, because the founder still has this overly fire expansion, likes to do what he needs to do, but does not pay attention to the metal, to the water, to all the other things that they're not put in place. You know?
To what's possible. Not paying attention to what's possible. So, with the tree, with the wood, would the inner wood be the roots going down into the floor? Or I guess that could also be considered the growth in the economy and in terms of like stability, in terms of becoming more important. Yeah, but also for nourishment for the inside.
Yeah, in that sense, you can see that when there's a slope and people want to build on that slope, they usually plant trees because you need those roots to stabilize the terrain. And we've seen that when you take out the trees, you have landslides. And so what you're describing is a bit that stability is going to come through those roots that have this, that almost create a grid that holds the earth.
You mentioned that the funding is very important for the birthing of the project. How important is that it's the right type of funding and right type of funder? Because I also feel a lot of time founders, when in their rush to really birth something, take some wrong funding, and then do you have anything to say there?
Yes, this has been a big question of mine, and I've been confronted to that quite a lot. it's like an energy. So you have this high frequency conscious projects, okay? And then you take a funding from someone that is not matching the project on a conscious level. And so there's going to have to be a lot of compromise, because either for the misalignment of objective, like does your investors just want return? And so often those conversations are not handled properly. But also the energy of the money coming in often does not match the project itself, depending on how what's made or whatever. So I've developed, personally, it has been a quest of myself, so I've developed a coaching program based on that I coach impact investors. Because what's been happening is that the impact investors, usually there's different stages, but the first stage, they kind of throw money here and there. This is like when they dabble at it. Oh, I've got money, I'm gonna give you this, give you that. And then they mature a little bit. And then they start putting into things that matter to them, but at the same time they micromanage. They want Excel spreadsheets, and they want to know where every dime is going, and they're quite over-controlling. And so to match a really conscious project that wants to have a systemic impact, we need an investor or like a fund that has already transformed the money. So there's people doing that. But we need an investor that is going to match and is going to be able to think in a systemic way. Now, one of the main issues is that the startup model is based on an exit. So the startup model is like quick, fast. And let's push it, let's push this. Okay, so it's very young. So all the people in there are like, whoa, and it doesn't match this yin perspective. The yin perspective that we're building something for generations to come, not just to make a profit in 5 years, but a good example is like in the Middle Age. They had the cult of the Black Madonna. So they integrated in the collective a yin, a feminine yin. And that was part of an archetype that was extremely present. And this is based on a book by Bernard Lietard, who's one of the main thinkers around those topics and a big inspiration to me. And one of his observations is that created a mindset in France, for instance, where they had this balance into the yin and the yang at the time through the economy and the balance in the economy. It created a mindset to build cathedral. Now we can say a lot around that, but what is a cathedral? It's like a very long-term project that people that are involved in are not going to see the end of it. And that is going to bring abundance to a whole city for centuries to come. So every city in France that has a cathedral has wealth, because over all the centuries, all the pilgrims, came and brought money, and the businesses could flourish. So it's this mindset of quick now growth that does not leave long-lasting. So when you talk about the investors, my dream is to support a new wave of investors that are thinking on a systematic level, that are there not for like the next 5 years, but like 20, 100, 200, and that kind of start overseeing things on a much larger scale than just this one project. So we need to talk about where the money is from, but also how we want to utilize it in the future. And so in the steps of the program, we go through the elements, but one of them is bringing the heart at the center of your ecosystem. So the investor needs to also have reached the point where it can connect with the heart, and the heart is in the middle of what he's healing, what he's received, if it's like inherited, but it's also infusing that heart into what he intends to do, and with purpose. So purpose need to be met by purpose.
Important.
Yeah.
Thank you. And how far are we in this? Like I see a lot of
I think generally my observation is that we are now in an age where access to this kind of consciousness, awakening, is everywhere, and everybody wants to change. Everybody wants to have that new project that is aligned. There's so many communities, beautiful, beautiful effervescence all around the world. And in my observation, the money is not really catching up at the moment. Everybody's looking for money, for funding. But also the right tools are not really being put in place for these to kind of really come together.
So I'm just observing how I fund my own business, and I've done part-time jobs and things like that. And the interesting thing is that it's a personal choice, as you were asking, like where do you see this is going? I can choose to go and work somewhere that pays a lot, but might not be doing anything really good for. I mean, I don't know, there's terrible work you can do. And that might give me a lot of money, but then I have to wash that money, not like money laundering, but I need to wash that money, cleanse it. Like I have to take that money, put it into a charity that does something for, I don't know, for kids or something like that. And then I would take it a step further that because the cosmos that we live in my opinion, gives back whatever we give out, that it then flows automatically back again. But we are always in this choice of, do I go for something that is higher energy? Like, do I go and, I don't know, help in an old people's home or something like that? Or, I don't know, just something nourishing, help people, and then I use that money for my business, and that will be much higher frequency, as you explained.
In the end, you can transform anything with your intention. So however you make your money, if you bring your heart at the center of how you're going to use it, it is possible to change that vibration with your intention. But yeah, in a nutshell. But I think what I tell people is always to be clear about what is your purpose.
Yeah.
And so those decisions become a lot clearer anyway. And bring the heart in the center of your life, into embody that purpose. In Chinese medicine, the heart is the palace of your soul. So as that purpose becomes embodied within the body, within your heart, then naturally these things kind of start mirroring back into how you make money, the type of partnership you attract, the type of partners. Everything starts kind of unfolding, but it starts by embodying your purpose and asking, what is my purpose? Yes.
So if we had to look at all of the money in the world, and it's like, what is the element that it's most heavy on, and what does it need for it to be nourished, in your opinion?
All the money in the world.
Yeah, so like what is the fire burning too much, or is the, you know?
That's a complicated question, because all the money in the world, well, money is in itself, it's a construction, okay? One way to look at it, if you look at the word Isis, it's like a stick, an S, a stick and an S. And so Isis in ancient time was the first initiation of any initiates on the path of spirituality. And this was linked to the water element, you know, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And this first initiation was saying, yes, I'm going to embody this purpose. Yes, I'm going to be a conduit between heaven and earth through my heart and through my actions and my presence. And I'm going to serve humanity and my communities, and I'm going to be in service. Now, if you take Isis and you put it all together, what symbol do you have?
Oh, the dollar sign. $2 sign.
Yeah, you have the dollar sign. So the dollar sign, this is a metaphor to say that the economy system that we're in is a perverted, is a distorted, fixed creation that takes us out of our divine purpose, of our divine service. And so when you say all the money in the world, it's tricky because all the money in the world is based on a lot of that, you know, because when, again, I'm going back to Bernard Lieta, when the yin and the yang were balanced in the economy, let's say in the early medieval time, yang currency had intrinsic value and they were made for international trade. So you had a coin of gold. And it wasn't really important from who issued it. You find a lot of those coins that were chopped into because they wanted to see if it was real. So that was a yang currency. But a lot of times locally they had yin currency. So like a lord would issue tokens. They were called méros in France. And he would issue a certain number and he would pay everybody with that. And locally it would circulate. But the Lord would say, and then these did not have intrinsic value, so they were yin in nature because they were local, did not have value, and they were meant to circulate and nourish locally. And what they would do is that they would say, in 6 years, we will take all the tokens and reissue new ones. But if you bring 4, we give you three back of the new currency. So there was a tax, which meant that people had to spend it. So money was never meant to accumulate. And in that time, the economy was balanced. And there's evidence that women had men's job, like they were judges. Like it was before, you know, we're talking like 1,000, 1,100. So when we have yin and yang currencies that are balanced, it almost creates a balance of those archetypes because they're at the heart of our exchanges. And so when you say when all of money come together, it's complicated because the root itself is flawed in a way, you know. Yeah. So I don't know if you have more questions or should we have a little break before we have a meditation, or I'm happy to answer questions.
Maybe a last reflection when I listen to all that. I think we have way too much young energy in the companies, especially in the corporate companies.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you do as an individual?
That's a difficult...
I know it's a complex question, but maybe with small things.
Well, first ask yourself, is it the type of organization that is willing to evolve? Yeah, are they making steps towards that? Can we bring this to the table? Can like at least in my team, can I put things in place? Would that be okay with my hierarchy? Like, it depends, you know, and you might have a CEO at some point that is super open, and then the next one is not. You might have a chef that is super open, and then the next one is not, or the other department is not. So it's a complex one because it will depend on the individual. It will depend on what's happening. Maybe there's so much burnout that there's a huge reshuffling from deep inside. But the larger the company is, the harder it is to move, I have to say.
And it's a general trend. As you mentioned before, the examples on the very old ages where yin and yang was very balanced.
Yeah.
I have the impression that we're in a very young world, also talking about politics.
Everything,
Yes.
It's almost like we've stopped having that divine feminine at the center in our representation. So for us, it's became Mother Mary. You know, it's and she's like a virgin, and it's like she's a virgin or a prostitute. You know, in the Christian world, that feminine. Or the spiritual leaders we have now that most people are fond of. It's like Mother Teresa. She's a nun and she's completely giving. Or Amma, she doesn't talk and she gives you a hug. I think Marianne Williamson was probably one of the first to raise the point that one of the duty of the feminine is to be a leader, but a spiritual leader. But I think she got really cut quite harshly.
How about and like it's a very yang energy, and I also think it's not an aware energy. I think a lot of people would not even get that. That's the yang energy, it's the yin energy. It's, for me, it's still very unidirectional. Let's get more money, let's get whatever way, and then invest. Means I think corporation, in my perspective, needs to change. I'm more worried about the new age companies which are being formed. They claim to be new age. They claim to do things differently, but they are not. And the ecosystem is also not yet ready to support that. And that's my biggest question or challenge. How do we work on that? Like a new generations which are coming, how do we nurture them?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've seen founders that still function in the old system. They push and they push, and the money is not following. I think one of the simple solutions that I could brush now, if you want, that I was thinking of is to bring the awareness of nature in at least the organizational rhythm. Because that would be something people could understand, that would not be too hippie. And that could maybe bring some kind of, at least an awareness. So what does that mean? It would mean, in this theory that I have, it would mean aligning the outer rhythm of the company, of the project, on the solar cycle. So at the spring equinox, you would have setting annual KPIs and strategic goals, and so you would intentionally bring that in, and this would the benefits would be to provide a clear direction for the organization and ensures also that the overall strategy is aligned with the overall vision and sets measurable goals for the year. And then you would have the summer solstice, which will be the mid-year review, adjusting strategy. The autumn equinox would be about harvesting insight, acknowledging achievements. And then you would have the winter solstice as to go in, to reflect, to recharge. So if companies did that, people would already be more aware of the cycles of that fits more with nature, and align the inner rhythm of the company with the moon, which would be let me find that. Which would be new moon would be the governance meeting, setting intentions. I can make this available if you want. Like the first quarter, when the moon is going up, review of progress, operational adjustments. In the full moon would be like celebration of achievement, reflective practices. And then the last quarter of the moon would be evaluation of lessons learned, preparing for the next cycle. So as people would kind of bring that awareness in every day, it would maybe integrate them and the team and the project into a greater context.
Yeah, I mean, it's also yang, and for me, our cultures are also very sun-focused.
Yes.
So, like in India, we have still a lot of old traditions are still very moon-focused. Even the astrology is moon-focused.
That makes sense. I think for me, India is one of the last remaining cultures that is alive, that is practicing. Like your temples are still being active the same way they were for thousands of years, and that's one that integrates the divine feminine in all its forms and diversity. Yeah. But I think, to answer your question, it's almost like it's a society issues. And I don't think as just one individual, it might cost you a lot of energy to make those changes from a huge organization at the moment. It would be interesting to hear examples where people manage to do that, but
I think it has to do with credibility, because I used to be investment advisor, and I was engaged by companies for life-work balance, but it was more like you have to do something for life-work balance, but it has not been integrated. So what they were preaching was not really applied, So it was more like some cosmetics they did, but it was not really culturally integrated.
yeah.
And I found it, so it never worked, They asked life-work balance, but they had to work until 9 o'clock at night. So I think that's also a problem, is the surroundings and environment you have.
I think you're putting your finger on one of the biggest problems, I think, and we see that at every level also. Exactly. For the sustainability. Is there a real desire, like, to make the changes on a deeper level, or is it just because it's a cool and trendy word, that we put? So I don't know if you have questions. Otherwise, we can have a little break and then we can have a meditation together. Maybe we sit around the circle over there and do like something a bit more cozy and less formal. I don't know if you want to use the bathroom. Or